Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing and another installment of Council of the Ones Babylon 5 review. And I hope you all have had a wonderful week, ready to kick off another hopefully restful and relaxing weekend. And glad that you're all here this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, whenever you happen to tune in or catch this. And oh goodness, well, hey, this works out nicely. And with me, as always, I have got two of my fellow council members. You know them, you love them. They're just a little scrambled, but the best are scrambled. Mountains of Elysium, back from his tour of the subcontinent and the interior of Europe, and of course,
Woo!
from beyond the rim, Lord Koj. Gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome. How we all doing?
Wonderful. Always thankful to be here. Thank you for the warm welcomes.
Always, always.
And good to be back. And holidays, I need another one to recover.
Indeed.
So
And
true.
yeah, I need a holiday myself. I need a holiday just to recover from a holiday. Kind of like our friend Elysium here. But to everybody that is in the chat, Bureau 31, Colin P. Smith, Positive Candor, and everybody else that might be lurking that just doesn't want to show their face, good evening, good afternoon, and glad you're here. And we are coming up on the climax of the Shadow War, and today we will be doing a review of the episode The Long Night. And as she did for us last week, the wonderful and the accommodating and the ever so talented Fiona Wolf has been so kind to put together a short little video giving her thoughts on the episode. So I'm going to pull that up. We will let that play, and then we will give our thoughts on what she had to say and give our thoughts on the episode. So, gentlemen, if you need a minute or two to get you some coffee or whatever you need to do, now is the time. I will go ahead and get this thing shared, and we will get this show on the road. And of course, unlike some YouTube channels, I remember to click share audio. Sorry, bad joke. And very poor taste. All right. Here we go. And Fiona, wherever you are, hope you have a good night. And thank you once again for all of your help. You're awesome. You rock. And we love you. Go.
Combination of a few different plot points. Mainly, there goes the Emperor and off with his head. Kind of. And I do like Sheridan's whole description of the situation between the Vorlons and Shadows as, giants in the playground, kicking through and taking the fight to the sandbox where everybody else gets caught up in all the happenings. It's like, ooh, boy. But it is true. Like, once the Shadows start pulling out their own kind of big planet killer death machines, which you get to see a little bit of that in Crusade, with the opening kind of movie / two-parter. Yeah, each side has their own Kardashev level beyond us weapons that we're like, oh dear, we're not going to be able to get through that. Mm-hmm. And of course, Malari has to get rid of his Morden problem along with the Shadows. Ooh, boy, yeah. And even then, that's not the Hail Mary that ultimately saves them. It probably helped delay the Vorlons for a moment, like, oh, wait, the former Shadow influence, but you know what? The Vorlons are on the type of warpath where they're like, anything that was touched by Shadows at any point is going to get the KO button. Goodbye. But things turn out even worse for Jakar, though, because when you finally do see him again, Cartagia took one of his eyes because he didn't like the way Jakar was just staring at him wordlessly, and it made the Emperor extremely uncomfortable. Although, like with everything in Babylon 5, Jakar's eye will have a little bit of a side story that ends up showcasing itself at Sheridan and Lynn's wedding night. It's like, oh no. Of course he would do that. God, Jakar. But the overall moment here, it's just like, wow. Yeah, if you didn't get any other clear indications that Cartagia was nuts? Yeah, this pretty much puts the ultimate pin in it, but it also stems from the fact that Cartagia thinks he's a living god just waiting for his ascension, which he thinks will happen through the shadows. Yippee. And of course, that poor jester gets killed. A lot of people around Cartagia have the habit of falling dead and just becoming part of his shadow cabinet in some cases. Oh dear. But this is where you get to really see how Londo and Veer's relationship has developed, and you can see how much they have each other's backs. Londo was the one that was willing to take the hit for actually, killing Cartagia. But by, sheer happenstance, Veer's the one that's holding the metaphorical gun, and he just basically jabs the thing into, Cartagia. But you could tell by the way the scene was set up that Cartagia was going on a rant, to Londo, and Londo's trying to calm him down a little bit to get him in position. And then Veer didn't even have enough time to hand the thing off to Londo. He was honestly looking. The Emperor was looking crazed enough to where he might even hurt Veer, smack him around or even do something worse. And then Veer plunges it into the guy's hearts because they want to make it look like it's just a mere heart attack. Oh, his hearts have collapsed and everything. But Londo and Veer weren't the only ones working behind the scenes on this. They had other Centauri from the shadows like, oh, yep, we don't want this Emperor around anymore, so we're going to wash our hands of him and be like, okay, he can go to ascend to wherever he's going to ascend to, but it definitely will not be godhood. But in order to get the Emperor in a vulnerable situation, Londo initially has the chains, mucked up to they would be weakened, and then Cartagia is like, no, this seems too weak to me, so he replaces Jakar's chains, but Jakar's still able to bust out of those suckers, and the worst comes to worst, where they even put the jester hat on Jakar's head. It's like, everything they could do to mock Jakar, but by him busting out of those chains and going after the Emperor and causing chaos, that Londo and Veer were able to bring the Emperor away from prying eyes and do the deed basically. So for this episode, I think Jakar's the most valuable player, even though he goes through a whole heck of a lot to get there. Oh boy. They also use Cartagia's death to catapult the Centauri off of Norn, which is what Jakar wanted. And of course, you get the little scene later where his people are celebrating, and they mockingly ask Jakar, "Oh, what have you endured?" And it's like, all you have to do is look at how he's set up, and it's like, can't you see what he's endured? Oh my God! You know what? I imagine there would be those lash marks would still be visible on his back and everything. It's not like they would instantly heal Jakar, with medical devices, especially under Cartagia, And all Jakar could do is stare and then start laughing and then just leave the throne room. It's rather telling, like, even though Narn is free, they haven't really let go of their shackles yet. Those are chains that are still pretty much wrapped around them for a while. It's actually even indicated in that one episode, Deconstruction of Falling Stars, that eventually the Narn and the Centauri patch things up, but a big turning point for them.
I just want to pause here because she has unpacked an awful lot. So, guys, your thoughts on what Fiona has brought up so far, and we'll finish the other half of the video. It's 12 minutes and everything. We're halfway through it, but she's put a lot out there. So I want to get your thoughts on this, guys.
She's really put a lot in. In fact, her mention, and I have notes for later about talking about the shackles. Mm-hmm. The shackles were like almost a metaphor on the Narn themselves. She's right that they're still shackled to their hate.
Yeah, I was really loving that part because that's the truth. Because it's like those are the shackles they had before they were retaken over, actually, and that's like the real prison. And I like how the foreshadow of that realization was when Jakar says, "I lost an eye, but I see things that I never saw that were there before, or something like that. Like he sees clearer. And I think that's just like a perfect example of the truth of where the real shackles are, the stuff that is invisible to the eye. Because, you don't have that
Yeah, and
understanding.
yeah, go ahead, Fee.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah. No, it's okay, but it's all right. The thing I've always found interesting, I'm glad Fiona brought this up. They want to put Jakar in as leader, and he's like, "Look, I did not go through all the hell that I went through just to become a tyrant myself." Because Jakar realizes that he is as susceptible as anyone to becoming a tyrant in his own right. And he's like, if the Kari is rebuilt and reestablished, he's like, I will be more than happy to rejoin it. But he's like, we need to address our wounds. We need to heal our planet. And he's like, the Centauri are a lost people. They are not to be. They are to be pitied. And he says it very, very well. And I just want to real quick to the chat, Lewis Cox. Lewis, thank you for being here, bud. I hope you're having a great day, and thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the stream. So, but the thing that Jakar says and really resonated with me because it is so easy. It would be so easy for him to say, "Yes, of course, I will be your leader now," but he says, "No, we need to redress our wounds. We need to heal our world, and we need to focus on what's important, and that is rebuilding Narn, not going to war with the Centauri. We don't need to worry about building warships." And to the chat, Joe Wolf 506 over on Twitch. Joe, I think this is the first time I've seen you in my chat, so good evening. Thank you for being here, and hopefully you're not a bot or a spammer. So, but hope you enjoy the stream. Hope you enjoy the discussion. So, but that's the great thing that Straczynski does so well with his characters is that and we've talked about this numerous times over the last several weeks and months and so on, is the fact that these are real characters who realize their flaws and their imperfections. I'm not. I'm from Scotland. My name's Brandon. Favorite color is blue. Favorite animal is a wolf. Awesome. So,
nice.
Joe,
and our Fiona Wolf will be back next week, hopefully.
Yeah, Lord willing. And it's a quarter to 12 p.m. here. Well, I appreciate you tuning in this afternoon. So, I don't know any proper Scottish greetings, but as we say over here on my side of the pond, howdy. So, but yeah, it's that is the thing I love about Jakar is though he has lost his eye, and I think it was Colin who brought up. Let me go scroll up here a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, no, it was Bureau 31. It was Bureau 31 that brought up this quote: "An empty eye sees through an empty heart. Your heart is empty, Morley. Do you know that?" And his empty eye not only sees the emptiness in Londo, but his eye sees the flaws in his own people. They're wanting to go to war with the Centauri, and he's like, no, now is the time to heal, not go to war. And I love that aspect of Jakar because a few seasons ago, he would have been like, yes,
right.
We will rebuild our fleet and we will bombard Centauri Prime and we will drive them into the dirt just like they did to us. But now, this Jakar, he's a peacemaker. And to quote one of my favorite lines of scripture, blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the children of God. So, Elysium,
yeah, he's more like a monk now than a warrior.
Very true.
He's I actually felt there was a few things with that. Shakar, I think, was able to do that because when he screamed for Cartagia, in his own mind, he was no longer Narn. So that freed him to become
Right.
the Jakar he is now.
That freedom of the shackles, those
Yeah,
invisible
freedom of his
shackles.
shackles. He had already broken his shackles.
That's
And
right.
Oh,
there's a
uh,
contrast. Oh, sorry, Ambassador.
no, it's okay. I just wanted to address Joe Wolf's comment here. Joe, we're talking about the TV series. Well, it's no longer on air, but it's called Babylon 5. It was created by J. Michael Straczynski. It was running the same time as Star Trek: The Next Generation and Star Trek: Deep Space Nine. We're currently talking about season 4. Okay, all right, good. You have heard of it. All right. Yes, Geek TV, indeed. But good Geek TV, not crappy Geek TV like is on nowadays. But yeah, that's the topic. Joe, you're coming in kind of at a good time, but also at a kind of a very bad time because we've covered the first 3 seasons. Oh yeah, Big Bang Theory. That's love that. Yeah, love that. Love that show. But yeah, we're at the beginning of season 4 of B5. They're wrapping up one of the major story arcs, and we'll be moving into the next story arc, not next week, but the week after. So
You have every episode up if people want to catch up, right?
yeah, it's on one giant playlist.
See?
Joe, I broadcast on Twitch, but I also have a YouTube channel. The channel's called the Ambassadorial Wing. I don't know if you have a YouTube account or not, but just type in Ambassadorial Wing. You see this guy, my avatar. That's my channel. It's okay. This will be fun to pretend like I know what's going on. Well, Joe, if you want a crash course in B5, I have done videos on all the major characters. I've been doing reviews for almost a year and a half now of the series itself. And hey, I'm glad you're here and glad to meet a new friend. Anyway, but yeah, guys, go ahead. I forget where exactly.
Another cool thing.
Mhm.
This is nothing very deep, but it's kind of cool to see that the brave sacrificial ranger is none other than our guy from Breaking Bad. I forget the actor's name right
Bryan
now.
Cranston.
Yeah, Bryan Cranston in his younger days, way before Malcolm in the Middle.
Yes, way
He's
before
like-
Malcolm in the Middle, definitely way before Breaking Bad for sure.
Yeah, way before. It's just like you just forget how many great actors or actors we've seen around the board
Mhm.
have passed through Babylon 5, and he's a key ranger in this whole story too for their whole plan. And this is when we see like Garibaldi have even more issues with Sheridan.
Yeah,
a little
because he's really freaking out because once they see the Shadow Planet Killer, he's like, yeah, kids, we're grossly outmatched now. Because not only do the Vorlons have a Death Star-esque planet killer, but the Shadows have a giant cloud of death.
Yeah. Oh man, can the Shadows get any scarier?
I think they just did. So, why don't we pick up?
Sure.
If you guys are okay, why don't we pick back up?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Joe. This podcast reminds me of a Comic-Con or the movie Paul with the Alien. I actually remember that movie, Joe. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but I actually remember that movie, and really appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you can go back and catch up on everything we discussed. So, if you guys are okay with it, we'll finish up Fiona's video, and then we'll jump back in. That good with you?
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Okay. Hang on 1 second. I gotta remember how to do this. I think I remember how. There we go. All right. Here we go. Like I said, we got 6 minutes, so we'll just finish up her video and then we'll go from there.
Patching things up was basically, Londo and Jakar and Veer. That was like the big, once Veer became emperor, that was like one of the bigger hurdles that he put everybody through to be like, okay, we got to really work on this, because the more the blood feuds go on, the more we won't escape the fate of basically killing each other, that sort of thing. And then as you're getting back to the end of the episode with the war room, Sheridan's going to have to ask one of the Rangers to make a pretty big sacrifice to plant some information to get the Shadows and Vorlons together for a party. Oh boy. I mean, that's one of the things, like a lot of military sci-fi does happen to get correct. In those kinds of setups, sometimes you do ask a lot of people that serve under you, even to the point where you basically are going to have to pay the ultimate price. And the reason why he had to ask this one ranger to do this is to make the information that was going to be planted seem genuine. If they didn't put up much of a fight to air quote lose this information, then neither side would have believed it. They would have just believed it to be a sheer plant and maybe a possible trap, even if they didn't believe that the younger races could legitimately give something like the Vorlons or Shadows a version of a trap. But the whole point, is also with Ivanova, gathering up more First Ones. And this time around, again, Lorian helps her because he can sense other First Ones because he is the first of First Ones. But it was important because eventually you'll find out through the next episode, basically, that all the First Ones, even the ones that weren't involved in some stuff or just minding their own business, they all have to go beyond the rim. The next stage of whatever evolution is going to happen or whatever other kind of reality is going to happen. That's the thing with Babylon 5. They don't really give you a concrete answer to that, so it lets people speculate and think, what is beyond that rim, And sometimes I just enjoy that. You don't have to explain every little detail. And Coriana 6 isn't really like a big, massive plot point. It's just a convenient hook because it's a planet of 6 billion people. You don't actually have to know the faces of those people to realize that the Alliance, what would eventually become the Interstellar Alliance, needs to protect them. Because that's a whole big loss of life right there. Whether it's like one or millions or billions, it's just, you can see based on how the Shadows of Vorlons react, they don't even care about the numbers anymore. It's their way or the highway. And everybody's along for the ride whether they want to or not. Oof. And Sheridan doesn't even pull his punches with the people in the war room. He showcases everything that he can, especially about the new Shadow death cloud. Because he wants people to realize really what is at stake, and the fact that the Vorlons and Shadows aren't going to hold back. They're going to be justified in their actions because it's their way or the highway. So it's just a case of you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and what can you do? You got to find your way to wiggle out and earn some breathing space. But by doing this, I think it helps them out in the next episode because one of the Drazi ships will take the hit for one of the Death Cloud missiles, so Sheridan and Delenn can get their point across. And by doing this, a lot of the other non-aligned world ships move in to protect Sheridan and Delenn's ship, so that way, they can make their point for the younger races. Because out of everybody, they know Sheridan and Delenn are probably the most likely people to be able to get anything through to anyone else, because they can see how charismatic they are. They basically helped bring all this stuff about. They have confronted the Shadows and Vorlons before and won. They have verifiable proof that both of these people have won against that. And I guess my final cue for the afternoon, as everybody listens to part of this replay, well, poor Veer, man, you can see how much it takes out of him. He gets completely plastered after he kills Cartagia. Because he's not the type of guy that where, death is the first thing he'll go for. It still showcases that he underneath, he's a very gentle man that's only moved to great action when it's required, And it's dang, man. And he has a little bit of a harder edge when he's Emperor, but that's just because you get the mantle of emperor, and some things do change. But the essential part of Veer that is him, somebody that's considerate, more of a scholarly fellow, that still shines through even after he becomes emperor. Because he hires Zach Allen to help do things. And he knows how good Zach Allen is at certain kinds of, security and scenarios, because poor guy encountered everything he could on Babylon 5, But yeah, you really feel for Veer in this episode. It's like, man, all that to take out a crazy emperor on the little shred of hope that the Shadows wouldn't KO them. Not the Shadows, but the Vorlons. The Shadows, though, they did get KO'd. But the Vorlon ship that was sent to kill off Centauri Prime, well, it got pulled away because of everything that was happening at Coriana 6. So, in that way, the Sheridan and his crew helped save Mollari and the Centauri. But that just opens up the window for the Drakh. So, see you later, everybody.
And folks, for those of you who don't know, that was the voice and the brain of our fellow council member, Fiona Wolf. And Fiona, thank you so much for putting these videos together the last couple of weeks. You've done a great job, madam, and we hold your place for you until you return. So, fellas, your thoughts on what Fiona had to say?
I love everything she has to say.
Or just on the episode in general.
You can go, Alicia.
No, she really packed a lot into 12 minutes. And she had a lot of the points, like if I went down to my notes, she had a lot of those points.
Well, as the old saying goes, great minds think alike. And
I will
the
say
council won. Go ahead,
she has
Jay.
a cool point she brought up of how Zach was hired as special services for security because he's like the best. And if you think about it, he really is, because Garibaldi was he came to Babylon 5 as head of security, but Zach came to Babylon 5 and worked the beat. Like, he worked the sectors, and then he worked his way up to where Garibaldi is. So I think Zach understands security and threats from like a space station ground level up with, dealing with aliens, because dealing with people is different. But dealing with aliens in, multi-cultures and mix of different ways to communicate, it's probably way different on the streets there than it is, like, let's say, Mars or Earth. So Zach's probably very, very diverse in security knowledge, I think.
The thing I will say about, like you said, Fiona packed a lot in there.
Yeah.
One of the points I want to touch upon is the burden of leadership for Sheridan and Delenn both. And when you meet Erikson early on in the episode, and then you meet him on later on, you see the weight of leadership. You see that burden on Sheridan and Delenn's shoulders, because they're asking this crew, though they're all Rangers or Minbari, they know what they're asking of them, and the crew understands. Erikson himself understands. He's like, "Sir, we're all Rangers here. We're Minbari. We know the job. We know what it may entail. We're ready, and we will get it done."
I thought that was sorry, Ambassador.
No, go ahead, Lysian, please.
I felt that was very poignant, because I know that the League were almost ready to break, and to prove his point of how far he was willing to go for them, in front of all the ambassadors, he ordered Erikson to his death.
Yeah.
And it was cutting Sheridan up. And what I found as poignant is Erikson took the time to comfort Sheridan, saying, "Sir, we know what you're asking. We are always prepared for this." And I thought that was a really beautiful touch. That
that
the man
was
sent to his death wanted to comfort him. Says, "No, don't let this be a burden on you.
Yeah,
this is what we're doing." And I think the
Ugh.
big question is like real soldier, real warrior.
Yeah.
Well, and Colin summarizes it perfectly. We live for the one. We die for the one. We stand on the bridge, and none shall pass until Za Vinny, in Valen's name. I love that phrase. They revere Valen so, and
It's a
Valen was
good
only
one.
a man. They revere Valen so, and Valen was only a man who did not want to be revered, but only do what was right. And it goes back to the two-parter in season 3. You are the one who was. You are the one who is. You are the one who will be.
That's right.
And it comes full circle here because the one always has to make the tough decisions, always has to make the tough calls, always has to send soldiers prospectively off to their deaths. And it cuts you. You see how hard it is for Sheridan, even though he himself is a soldier. He has seen death. He has ordered other soldiers to their deaths. But in some cases, you didn't know that death was certain. But in this case, he knows death is certain. Even as strong as a White Star ship is, the circumstances that they're going into, it's the Erickson and his crew are going to die. And then you hear
it's still the Millennium Falcon going up against a bunch of Star Destroyers.
Yep.
Yep.
And you hear
TIE fighters.
Yeah. And you see Sheridan sitting in his office, and you hear him listening, or you see him listening to the recording of the playback from the White Star that Erickson was on. And you hear those last lines of dialogue until Za Vinny. And it cuts out. And I think it's Delenn that walks in and says, "It's done, isn't it?" He's like, "Yep." And I looked this up a long time ago, but I remember this one line, and Sheridan quotes it from Tennyson, one of my all-time favorite classic poets, Alfred Lord Tennyson. Is the age-old strife to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. And that is the truth of this particular story arc with the Shadows. No matter how daunting the obstacle may be, they strive and they seek and ultimately find their way forward into the future. And they forge their own future. Though many lives are lost, none of them are lost needlessly, to forge a new future for everyone. Thank you. Yeah, Elysium, thank you for bringing that up. Is that the poem?
Yep, there's a link to the poem, and they have it in full on the Lurker's Guide.
If y'all will indulge me, I've always loved this poem, and I would very much like to read it for those of you who have never heard it, because this is by far one of my all-time favorite poems. As I mentioned, it is by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It is titled Ulysses. A little prophet sat an idle king by the still hearth among these barren crags, watched with an aged wife. I meet and dole in equal laws unto a savage race, that hoard and sleep and feed, and know not me, I cannot rest from travel. I will drink life to the less. All times I have enjoyed. Greatly have suffered, greatly, both those that loved me and alone on shore. I went through scudded drifts, the rainy Hades, vexed the dim sea. I become a name, for also roaming with a hungry heart. Much have I seen and known, cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments. Myself not least, but honored of all them all, and drunk delight of battle with my peers. Far on the ringing plains of windy Troy, I am part of all that I have met. Yet all experience is an archway wherethrough gleams that untraveled world where margins fade. Forever and forever when I move. How dull it is to pause, to make an end. To rust unburnished, not to shine in use. As though to breathe where life piled on life. Where all too little, and one to me, little remains, but every hour is saved from that eternal silence, something more, a bringer of new things. And vile it were for those 3 sons to store and hoard myself, and this gray spirit yearning and desire, to follow knowledge like a sinking star, beyond the utmost bound of human thought. I'll skip a little bit here. Actually, you know what? It's not much more. I'll just read the rest. This is my son, my own Telemachus, to whom I leave the scepter and the isle. Well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labor by slow prudence, to make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. Most blameless is he, centered on the sphere of common duties, decent, not to fail, in offices of tenderness and pay. Meet adoration to my household gods when I am gone. His work, I mine. There lie the port, the vessel puffs her sails. There gloom the dark broad seas, my mariners. Souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine, and opposed. Free hearts, free foreheads, you and I are old. Old age hath his honor and his toil. Death closes all, but something ere the end. Some work of noble note may yet be done, not unbecoming men that strove with gods. The lights begin to twinkle with the rocks. The old days wane, the slow moon climbs The deep moans round with many voices. Come, my friends. 'Tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push out, and setting well on older smite. The sounding furrows for my purpose holds, to sail beyond the sunset, and the baths of all the western stars, until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down, and maybe we shall touch the happy isles, and see the great Achilles, whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved heaven and earth, that which we are. One eagle temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fear, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.
Very well read.
That was nice. Thank you.
I have my moments. Not many of them, but I do have them. Telemalchus, thank you, Colin P. Smith. I appreciate it. Greek is sometimes a little tricky, but if you can work it through, you can get it. So, but you know what? There is much that is true within that poem, and I think Straczynski took a lot of inspiration from it, and I'm glad that he included the ending of the last few lines. Because if you go back and reread this, and I hope some of you will, it speaks strongly of Sheridan and Delenn's legacy, of their sons as well. And it speaks very strongly of the past and how the past can shape the future. Oops, we lost Koj. He may have had to dip, or he may have just had internet issues. But the thing I take from that poem is what I just said. It speaks very strongly of what Sheridan and Delenn, and even, for his part, Lorien, are fighting for. To create a better future, a better world, and a better universe for those that will follow after. And I think in some ways it does echo of what the Shadow and Vorlon's original purpose was to be as well. To build up others, leave a legacy, and leave something better for their forebears. But unfortunately, the Shadows and the Vorlons lost their way. And we will learn that in next week's episode, Into the Fire.
Ooh.
So, I know I kind of went on there for a few minutes, guys. So, your thoughts on the poem or anything else that we've discussed or we haven't covered so far with the episode?
In the episode, I noticed that there's a moment where Londo, when he's talking to Veer, he's sitting down. And he's kind of talking to Veer as Veer is hunched over about, Veer just killed someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way Londo's talking to him in a way to kind of comfort him reminds me of the same setting and type of, and also same type of sharing of wisdom back in season 1 when he was saying my shoes are too tight and I've forgotten to dance or something like that.
Yeah. Yep,
oh yeah, where he said my shoes are too tight, but it doesn't matter because I've forgotten to dance. It seems like this is that same setting, but even more intense after everything they've gone through and what Veer has gone through. Like that was back then. That was a matter of the heart, and this is now also a matter of the heart. And this episode shows a lot of hope for Londo because when he tells Veer, at least he has his honor. That's the only thing he has left. But he still has hope to rebuild Centauri Prime. It's this is that precious time where it's like Londo is a good guy, and these moments are so precious because of what's going to happen in later episodes to come. It's just nice to see it start here.
I
Go ahead,
honestly
Elysium.
think Londo is good from here on. If it weren't for the keepers, I think
Right?
Londo would have been the emperor that Veer became. That Londo cared and loved Centauri Prime, and I know in the next episode he just tells Veer, "Kill me now. That might drive the shadows away. My death is worth saving my people."
Yes.
So Londo has
Yeah.
changed, and
Big time.
I was struck how Shakar and Londo are both offered keys to the kingdom. Shakar refused it because he knew his people didn't need that. They needed to heal.
Right.
And just as a quick aside, it reminded me of a last season where that Narn came to take over from Shakar as ambassador.
Mm.
And Shakar is pretty much repeating what he said. But I keep going back to comes the Inquisitor. If you do the right thing for the wrong reasons, the work becomes corrupted. That guy said, we must heal, we must repair so we can build up to strike back. He was doing the right thing, what Shakar wants now, to break the cycle, break the chains.
Yes.
But he was doing it for the wrong reasons. He was saying that would have kept him in the shackles. Shakar sees now with his one eye the true path.
Yes.
And the fact he laughed at the insult that pretty much before would have demanded him kill the insulter.
Yeah.
Londo, in contrast, took up the mantle because his people needed someone strong at that time. If he had refused, Centauri Prime would have been destroyed because no one would have done anything. It took Veer to convince the council, not Londo, to go with him to kill Cartagia because they were dithering, saying, well, we must wait, we must do something. And Londo knew what needs to be done.
Yeah.
He had Veer by his side to win that council over. And then he took his first act after basically BSing those who weren't in the know on the conspiracy was Narn must be freed. Which shows that, going back, Londo was a good man, true to his word, and he freed them immediately.
Yeah.
So,
and go ahead, Elysium, please.
So I was just kind of about to finish. So each of them did the right thing for the right reasons.
Yes.
I think, just going back, I keep referring to Comes the Inquisitor. That seems to be the pivotal episode of the show I keep referring back to.
Oh, yes.
And it makes more and more sense every time it does.
Yeah, but you're Elysium, you're not wrong by any stretch of the imagination. Come the Inquisitor is honestly, it really raises the questions of why are you doing what you're doing now, and what is your end goal for what you're doing, and it's true of every single main character in the series. Everybody had a motivation, or their motivation changed. But the question becomes is, why are you changing? Why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing it for a noble reason or for an ignoble reason? And just about every single case, everybody, what they did, all the sacrifices they made were for the right reasons. And, there's one other conversation that I do want to touch upon, and that's the one between Ivanova and Sheridan. Because when Sheridan sends her off with Lorian to find the remaining first ones, he's like, I don't want you there. And she's like, no. She bucks him. She bucks him hard on this. She's like, everybody I cared about is gone now. Everybody left me behind because they were afraid I would get hurt. She's like, I want you to make me a promise, not as friends, not as officers, but soldier to soldier, that I will be there with the rest of the fleet for this last battle. Win, lose, or draw.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't care. I want to be there. And honestly, it takes a very rare breed of a person, not a soldier, not an officer, but of a person, to knowingly and willingly put themselves in harm's way, not for honor, not for glory, but because they want to be at a person's side that cares for them the most. And I think the bond between Sheridan and Ivanova, I hate to refer back to the poem I just read, but it does speak volumes about it. That bond between comrades in arms. When you have been through life, when you have been through war, when you have been through strife so much, it forges a bond that is almost indestructible. And that's what Ivanova feels for Sheridan, and that's what she feels for this fight. She wants to be there all the way to the end. She doesn't want to be left behind. She doesn't want to be protected. And I love the monologue that she gives when she's talking about her mother coming down and just watching her play. And then her mother tells her, I want you to go over to cousin Magda's house and wait for me. I will come for you. But she never did. That's when her mother killed herself. And, I say this even as a person of faith. I believe, and it may seem somewhat heretical, or maybe it doesn't. But I believe in that circumstance that God, whether you are Christian or Jew, that God will not consign a person to the pit if they take their life because they feel they have no other recourse. If they feel that they are at the end of their life. And I think in Sophie Ivanov's case, when she closed her eyes to the world, I like to believe that God showed compassion on her and did not consign her to the pit, but said that your suffering is over, my child. Welcome to your eternal home, where you will no longer know any suffering. But that's a personal belief that may, as I said, seem somewhat heretical. But as one of my professors said in seminary, if you're not being a little heretical, you're not trying. So, but I love that conversation between Ivanova and between Sheridan. So, guys, your thoughts on anything I just brought up?
I'd like to chime in on just the relationship of Ivanova and Sheridan, because
Sure.
it's great that we see these moments of them, because they have history of working together well together before coming to Babylon 5. And so they are like, in a way they're a team. It's like like a duo, or Ace Detectives, or like in in 300 they always had a Shield brother or a Shield, whoever. That's probably like a Shield sister. It's like together they're a good force, and they've worked well together, and this is their continued working relationship, just like Sinclair had with Garibaldi, because they worked together in the past before coming to Babylon 5, and then they had that bond. And of course Sheridan is on his path, so Sinclair is on his path now, and then Sheridan is, this is just more of that story of him and his right hand and her, best friend or whatever. It's like that team, and it's great seeing their bond just like flourish, because they really have each other's back out of respect. And because he even helped her eject, otherwise she would have died like Ganya already.
Yeah.
So they've been through a lot.
Well, yes.
And that bond goes back further, as Ganya was killed, I think possibly under Sheridan's command in the Battle of the Black Star, because he was the pilot killed chasing them in Bari.
Yeah, he was temporarily in command. He was, because his commanding officer died.
Yes, it was after Ganya was killed that Sheridan took, but I think he almost took when Ivanova started working with Earth Force. I think he became his surrogate big brother to her. officer. And that's
Yeah.
how
That
the
makes
bond
sense.
grew between the two of them, because they are closer than colleagues. They are like family.
Yeah, they are like brother and sister. And that makes sense. The trade-off because they were both there. I don't know. One of my aunties said that when people pass away in the same vicinity, you feel their like aura or something. I don't know, whatever you believe in, but
Yeah.
what if there's like a little bit of Vorlon truth to that, and maybe he did feel a little bit of Ganya's what he left behind, and by maybe God's will, they ended up being brother and sister, surrogate in a way,
Yeah. I
just by
actually,
natural universe design or whatever.
no, I get exactly what you're saying, Koj. Yeah, it's something that I have noticed in life, just in real life, and it's kind of echoed in certain pieces of fiction. And okay, I'll quote this, and I know it's really off topic, but Luna Lovegood says it to Harry, I think, in Order of the Phoenix. It's right after the battle where Sirius Black gets killed. And she's like, no one's, I'm kind of paraphrasing what she says, but she kind of says to him, the ones that we care about are never really gone. Because someone comes in to your life that doesn't necessarily replace them, but fills that void in a way.
Right.
Well, it's not. I always, just to be a little bit personal thing for a minute, I always had hoped, I had always wished I'd had a brother or sister. Never did. Mom and dad just couldn't have kids, and unfortunately, dad died, so it never happened. But I've been very richly blessed, and I mean that quite literally, that I have a great circle of friends, both from my years at school and from the family that has reached out to me and tracked us down after so many years apart, and my cousins, whether they are just a few miles away or 1,000 miles away. They became the brothers and sisters I never had. So I think Sheridan being a surrogate brother to Ivanova, and maybe vice versa, even though Sheridan has siblings, he has one that understands him better than any of his own siblings ever could. And you can almost say that Veer is a surrogate son to Londo. Kind of harkening back again to the poem by Tennyson, Ulysses.
And much like Jakar having like Natath as a sister in a way.
Yeah, you could even go that you could make that argument most definitely. So, but the crazy thing is, they're all going into the fire, but they're not going into it alone. They're going into it as a very ragtag and a very unorthodox, but they're going into it as a family. And they will come out of it stronger than when they went in. Because fire is used to forge metal and forge bonds. And those bonds often become unbreakable. Even in the case of Mr. Garibaldi, though he may lose his way because of being conditioned by that scumbag Bester, eventually he will find his way back home to the family that he loves and that loves him. So, guys, I think we'll wrap up here in a minute, but I want to give the floor to you. Any final thoughts before we close?
There was just one thought I had where when Jakar broke the chains, Londo had looked to get those chains weakened so it would help Jakar break them, and Cartagia said no, I had them strengthened because they looked weak. Oh, we lost Koji. And when he was able to break the chains. I think it goes to show the Centauri are not as lost as we think they are, because the Chainmaker obviously weakened them more. Because from how Cartagio was describing it, he should not have been able to break those chains at all. But he was. So there are more in the Centauri court who are willing to go along. They saw, hey, these chains are weakened for a reason. Kill the Emperor. So I believe that the Chainmaker broke those chains for Jakar.
That's very likely. It wouldn't surprise me because, let's be honest, I imagine there were a lot of people that saw Cartagio for who he was, but for fear of losing their head, they remained silent, which it's best to remain silent when in a conspiracy, because the fewer lips that speak, the safer the conspiracy.
And
so,
Koji,
go ahead.
I was just going back to comes the Inquisitor again. That Chainmaker did his work alone in the dark, without any thought for himself, without any thought for fanfare. So just going back to that. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Koji, go ahead.
Oh, I guess the only thing I have to add is I like one scene for the lighting and the placement when Londo was talking to Jakar, and when he saw that Jakar lost an eye, how it was lit was it looked like Londo's face was half in shadow, and then you just saw Londo with one eye, and it kind of looked like they mirrored each other while they're in a cell. And as we're saying, they had like a death of ego in order to do something more bigger than them, like doing something for their homeworlds instead of their ego. I think that was like symbolic of where they were looking at themselves in a mirror within each other in a cell. I just love how this whole episode is lit beautifully, but that one in particular, I love that scene and I love those shots.
Very astute observation.
Exceptional.
Yeah. Koji, very astute observation, man. Good job.
Thank you.
Good catch there. Yeah. Hey. So, but I think we're going to wrap up, folks. But I want to thank you all for tuning in this evening or this afternoon or when you catch us on the replay. And I hope you all enjoyed the stream. And as always, leave your thoughts down below with anything that me and the council brought up, especially with Fiona and her contribution. Always a great Fiona, as always. If you catch this, darling, you did a great job, and we thank you, and we miss you, and we hope to see you again very, very soon. So, but of course, we will be back next week, same time, same day, with our review of Into the Fire, the concluding chapter of the Shadow War saga. And as always, make sure you smash that like, share this out with all your friends who are a fan of Babylon 5, and also make sure you are still subscribed, because YouTube is up to their usual shenanigans once again. I keep getting subs, losing subs, getting subs, losing subs. I know it happens to everybody, so make sure, not just for this channel, but for any channel that you're subscribed to, make sure that you are still subscribed to those that you follow. And if you come across this video, and this is your first visit to the Ambassadorial Wing, and you enjoyed what we did here today, not just for myself, but for those that have gone on this journey with me, make sure you hit those links in the chat. Subscribe to Mountains of Elysium. Subscribe to Lord Koji and Fiona Wolf and Classic Comics, and because they are all worth your time. So, and I do want to let you all know I will be live Sunday evening at 7:30 Central Time with my review of the brand new Suicide Squad by Mr. James Gunn. So hope to see you all then. That will be an open panel stream. The link will be in the chat. So if you want to come in and join the conversation, be sure to do so. And guys, another great stream, another great review. Thank you all for your thoughts, for everything that you contributed today. This was a great stream. Really enjoyed it. So, but we will see you all next week. And until next week, this is a Council of One saying, Zoot, zoot,
zoot, zoot,
zoot, zooty.
Zoot, zoot. That was pretty good, actually. That was pretty good.
That was.
I think.
We're getting better. By the time we're done, we'll get it right. So, all right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.